My hair kind of looks like Lord Farquaad today. All right, welcome to the Free Outside Show. This will be coming out while I'm on the Appalachian Trail going for the record. So what is the record? It's like 45 and a half days. Joe Stringbean McConaughy, Stringbean is his trail name, has the current record. And so in this episode, I wanted to break down how I'm going about attacking this record. The trick is Joe set the record going northbound, so he started in New Georgia and went to Maine, and I am going southbound. I'm starting in Maine and going to Georgia. So our splits and stuff don't really coincide. It's really hard to use those numbers. Like when he was really tired, that's when I'm going to be really fresh. When he was really fresh, that's going to be when I'm really tired, obviously, because at the beginning, that'll be my end, and at the end, that'll be my beginning. So let's break down how I'm going after this, why I'm going this direction, and just all the intricacies of this record. This is the Free Outside Show. I'm your host, Jeff Garmeyer. Give me a follow, support me on Patreon, Substack, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those things. Let's get into it. Okay, the record is really tricky on the Appalachian Trail. We've seen it be set going northbound. We've seen it be set going southbound. We just saw a really valiant effort by John Kelly going northbound. But when he hit about the Wildcats, so around mile 1800 or so, that's when he had an injury. I don't know why this happened. It could have been an overuse thing. And when you're taking millions of steps like this, one little thing can throw the whole thing off, which is the scary part of these multi-day FKTs. And when I mean multi-day, we should really call this category multi-week, because that's really what it is. But the hardest portion of the trail, undoubtedly, can't even argue with it, is the northern 400 miles. So there's a few little chunks that are easier in there, but really New Hampshire, the White Mountains, and southern Maine, the Mahoosucs, are the hardest part. Katahdin, yes, is a hard climb, but then there's pretty easy miles in the 100-mile wilderness. So with it being so skewed to the hardest part of the entire trail being so far on one end of it, you have to decide, do you want that to be at the beginning of your record attempt or at the end of it? And so there's been a lot of debate over the years, but I think we're kind of coming to the consensus that if everything goes well as far as overuse issues and things like that, it's a little easier to navigate it at the beginning of your record attempt. Why? Because I think you can moderate your effort a little cleaner and a little better early on. And at least that's what I'm banking on. The other reason is just with scheduling and how my life is working and trying to set up all this to continue to be making an income from both my podcast and my coaching. It's so much work that I needed like months of preparation for this. I wanted to go for this record in 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. Biden beat Trump. I mean, COVID, that's what I meant. But I wanted to go for it then, and COVID just threw things off. I was a week away from competing in the Barkley Marathons, and they were canceled when COVID shut everything down, and I ended up working in a grocery store. I didn't just like walk into a grocery store, they kidnap me and say you have to work here. But I had some income tied to these projects and they ended up falling through. And so I freaked out and was like, well, I don't have any way to make money currently because everything's dried up. I had a few writing gigs, but they weren't going to be good enough for living in society. They were going to be good enough for living at a homeless level. So I decided I needed to work at a grocery store. So that's what I did. That was the long fall from grace. The plan that year was to do the Barkley Marathons. Hopefully those went well. And then attempt to set the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail in the same year. Was it insane? Absolutely. But I love doing insane things. So I'm trying to keep my life and income going right now while going after this record. So that's the real trick that I'm going after this year. How is it going to work? Well, you be the judge, but you can help by patreon.com/freeoutside. Okay, you hear that? All right, that'll help. All right, so let's talk about the style. So I need to go southbound for my schedule. And I also think, just with Tara Dower showing the blueprint of it, that this might be the fastest way to do it. So for her, wow. Words, Jeffrey. Through her first 10 days on the trail, she averaged about 43, 44 miles a day. So this is well behind the roughly 53 miles a day that Carl Sabe averaged for the entirety of the trail. So she put herself in a hole early on because the terrain was so difficult. And this is the exact strategy that I'm going to be using. I have pre-designed, pre-specified splits that I'm going to be hitting through the first three, let's see, three resupplies that are about in that 43 to 45 mile a day level, because that is going to be the most sustainable for the entirety of the journey. So once I hit mile 400 at Glen Cliff, actually 399.1 if you're keeping track at home and grading me on a curve. But once I hit there, the miles get easier, it gets flatter, you can run a lot more. And so my goal is basically to do the, what was that coach name? NC State winning coach. Let me look this up. This is really good podcasting. Stay with me. It's something, oh man, basketball coach, you know him. Hold on. Stay on target, stay on target, stay on target. Jim Valvano. I think his motto in the NCAA tournament was survive in advance. So that is basically going to be my motto through the first 400 miles. See, I knew the motto, I just didn't know where it came from, which might even be sadder. So with all that hard terrain, and there's I was penciling out like 50-mile days, and one of the days was like over 20,000 feet of gain in a day. So that's when I decided I needed to dial it back, and then I can always push forward later in the effort. So I just need to survive in advance and feel relatively good 400 miles in. That's when the big kid shoes can come on, the big kid pants, the whatever you want to call it. And that's when I can really push hard. So going into Vermont, south of Vermont, including Vermont, things get a lot more manageable. So basically, I have to accept I'm going to be behind record pace for the first 10 days of this adventure. That is really hard for me to like work into my mind in any way, but I think it's really important too, is to start thinking about how am I going to feel? And this is a big part of the mentality of FKTs, is you have to think about what's going to impact you, what you're going to face. And this is what I did a lot with through hiking, because I've done 7,000 mile through hikes, 8,000 miles. That's when you're out there for 8 months, 7-8 months. I've been out there doing things like in the winter and stuff, but you have to be prepared for things to be really hard. So I always think, what am I going to feel like when it's really bad? How am I going to feel when I'm disheartened? And then when I actually feel that way, it's not so scary. It's not so sad, because I already know the feeling. I already put myself in that scenario. Does this come along with having some depression that's treated through therapy? Maybe, but it's also a really valid way to go about things. I coach a number of athletes, and one thing I've run through with a few of them that have done something like over the top really hard is just to think about when it's really hard, how that's going to feel. So then when that actually feels that way, it's not such a shock, and you're able to deal with it and move forward. There's not that period of maybe a day of shock of like, oh, whoa, it's me. You've already thought about this and you're solution oriented immediately. That's how I attack these things. I think that's my secret weapon. So that's what I'm already thinking about, is like, 400 miles in, I'm going to be behind Joe's pace. I'm accepting that, and that's okay. But I just need to accept that that is the way that I can do this faster. Like, I have to go slow to go fast, because it's so hard. The descents are harder than the ascents in southern Maine and New Hampshire, just because you're going up so steep that you can kind of push off gravity. You know, if you're climbing something steep, it's a lot easier than when all the torque is going to keeping yourself upright on a descent, that there's just way more impact. So it's going to be really tricky. I fell every single day during the training camp, and in a normal year of trail running, I don't fall once. So it's going to be a adventure of just trying to get through this first, 10 days basically. And then from there, I start doing a little bit shorter resupplies. So we're talking like 2 days at a time. And the reason is so that I can maximize the time that I'm moving at a faster speed. While it may be a little bit of a give and take of like the time to go off trail, none of my resupplies take more than 1.4 miles, and I'm covering it all by feet, no hitchhiking. I have to go in and out. These are called bonus miles because they just add right into the overall total. So I'm going to be doing over 2,200 miles to try to get this record. But the reason that I've chosen to do a few more of these resupplies is so that my pack weight stays relatively low. I'm going to be eating about 3 pounds of food a day. I might do another episode on the food that I'm eating, But the key is I never want my pack to feel too heavy. It's going to help with the climbs and especially the descents and the ability to run. So if I can average 3.5 miles an hour instead of 3.2 miles an hour for a day, that is huge if you extrapolate that over, let's say, 16 hours. So that'd be 56 miles at 3.5 56 miles at 3.5 miles an hour, and at 3.2 miles an hour we're looking at 51, 52. That's another 2 hours of movement I'd have to go to make up that time. So that's where I'm thinking like speed of movement over the course of it is more important than a bonus quarter mile or so, because a lot of these resupplies, let me just read off some of them. So my longest one is actually my first one in Caratunk. That's right before the Kennebec River. And this is also a tricky one because I have to cross the Kennebec River on the ferry. At least I would like to. I swam it back in 2016. Read my book, Free Outside, anywhere books are sold, or I read the audiobook. It's a great one, and I actually get money if you buy the audiobook, so thank you. But I talk about swimming the river and how scary that was. It's probably the biggest question mark in my life of why would I do that? But I have to hit the ferry between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. in order to cross on it. So that is the first trick of trying to nail that time frame. So that is tricky. And then to resupply right before I cross that ferry, it's 1.4 miles each way from the trail crossing to where I'm resupplying. So that's 2.8 miles of bonus miles. It has to be done. Nothing else is that long, but let's just read through some of the others. The next one, 0 miles off trail. Next one, 0.2. It's actually a little bit further. It's probably like 0.5. Next one, 0.1, 0.6, 0.1, 0.6, 0, 0, 0.1, 0, 0.25, 0.1, 0.2, 0, 0.2, 0.3, 0, 0.1, 0, 0.2, 0, and then I'm done. So obviously these numbers are tiny, so I have the ability to get off trail and back without adding a ton of bonus miles. And when it's only going to take, let's say 10, 20 minutes round trip, and I can get extra calories, whether that's in the form of a soda or something I'm craving like a Snickers bar or something, that is the psychological side of an FKT that we don't know that much about, but I have a lot of theories on and I coach on too, is like you want some of these psychological wins built into your day so that you feel more comfortable going. If I break up my day with things that feel like victories or satisfying, or I feel like I'm progressing and doing really well with what I'm doing, then I'm going to have a better mindset throughout, because the highs and lows of this are huge. You're taking out sleep and you're pushing really hard. That equals emotional turmoil. But if you build in these psychological wins along the way, whether it's food, whether it's jumping in a creek, relaxation, drinking something good like a soda, talking to people, making a video, it can listening to a song, it can be anything. This breaks up your day and gives you like these anchor points of emotion that you can hold on to of like, this is uplifting, this is bringing me back to normal, I'm feeling good about this improved my day. If you have enough of those, it's just like holding up those negative emotions and just swatting them away so that you can push successfully through it. Because I'm going to go into the well, but I have to have strategies that keep me from going into the well too soon, and also having my mind disappear and become negative and doubtful and just hurt my chances before my body is ready to hit that stage. Ideally, that stage is probably the last 300 or so miles, maybe starting with the Smokies. But the goal is to not hit that point for a longer period of time, which is why I built in a few more resupplies so that even those bonus miles, they're going to equal better mental fortitude, better mental state, better emotional state. So that's the strategy for how I'm doing resupplies. My longest one is 160 miles. My longest amount of days is probably 3.5, 4 days right at the beginning, but that's just how it has to go. My first two resupplies are 151 miles and then 168 miles. That's going to be really tough, but there's really no better way for me to get that done. So that's what I'm doing. The other mindset things that I'm doing going in are going out and working or practicing and running, training in the hardest portion of the trail was a huge way that I got this both training stimulus and got to see what I'm up against. So I had a bit of trauma. I talked about the Kennebec River. It's one of the dumbest decisions I've done. I could have very easily died. Many hikers have died in the past, but the ferry wasn't running. I didn't have a choice. So included in this training camp, the Kennebec or the Caratunk Kennebec River area is not one of the hardest, but I wanted to start north of there so that I could relive this experience and paint over it with something a little more positive and less scary. I mean, the opening of my book is this I should have died moment. So I wanted to paint a more recent memory of success, feeling good, hitting a plan perfectly going through there versus like fear, turmoil, I'm going to die feeling. So that's what I did. And then I progressed into southern Maine, extremely hard, was still able to cover 25 plus minus miles a day with 10,000 plus feet of vert, feeling pretty good. I tried out all my gear. It rained plenty, so I could tell what was waterproof, what needed improvement, how to pitch my tent in the rain and the wind and everything. I did a full episode on the training camp and recapping it. But all these little skills and efficiency things of like where to pack things, how to feel good, how to know how I wanted to attack everything. Can I set up my tent with 6 tent stakes instead of 8? All of these I had to learn ahead of time and while I was out there, or else I would never trust it. Like you can't just go into something and expect to know exactly how you're going to do it, which is why I coach with specificity and I practice specificity. Like I'm going to take the exact gear, exact nutrition, and do the exact terrain that I'm going to be doing this record on, but I'm going to be doing it at a pace where I can learn, I can experiment, I can try different things. And so that was the point of the training camp. I came back with a healthy dose of fear, realism, and confidence. So that is where I'm at. That is how I've scheduled things. And I built a spreadsheet. I have resupply boxes ready to go. And I'm making some tweaks to my nutrition directly from this training camp where it was like, wow, I don't want to be eating 8,000 calories worth of nuts every day. That is going to be annoying. So I've looked at some other options. And even though they're not the same calories per ounce as the original plan, they're going to be way more satisfying and I think contribute to a lot more success out there on the trail. All right, that is my overall mentality, strategy, what I'm doing, brought to you live from Montana, thanks to the Kinsinger family for the cabin to record these things in and stay because I'm homeless. One thing I want to throw in here is I'm wearing Johnji.com. They are the sponsor of this show. And I'm wearing mostly Johnji stuff because it's awesome. They have really good quality stuff. And I tested the AFO Ultra 5-inch shorts so much. Like I probably have 700 miles on them and they've shown no wear. They have pockets, which are great. And this is the key with being out there is I need to be so efficient where I'm storing my stuff. I need to have calories on the side in my pack everywhere, just so they're really easily accessible for everything. And the AFO, you have to get the Ultra version because they have pockets. The other AFO shorts don't. They have pockets, but not the same level. These have the ones like in traditional pocket placing. And so those are going to be a key. I'm also wearing the AFO visor because visors are, I don't know if they're cool, but they're useful. And what else? I'm wearing the Snappy Trekker shirt because, so when I was out there, I had a lot of issues with salt consumption. Like I could not consume enough salt. I kept getting finger cramps, which is usually the sign for me that I need to up my salt consumption. And so I would have to just like throw more and more salt into the oven, I guess we can call it, to have everything working and not cramp up when I like overbent or step down to filter water or something. And so the Trekker shirt, the Snappy Trekker shirt, it has snap buttons instead of like the buttons you got to thread through and are always annoying. So it's really easy to do even if I fail at my salt. There you go. The Snappy Trekker shirt, the Snappy shirt Trekker thing from Johnji works even when your fingers don't. So that's the gear I'm wearing. And so since I traveled out there and took 2 pairs of shorts, they were actually both different Johnji shorts, it really helped me gauge the chafing level that's going to be happening. And it was pretty obvious. I had the, what was it? I think it's the Traverse. It's a discontinued model from Johnji and the Ultra 5-inch AFO shorts. And testing them side by side, each day I would swap actually. It was really good testing. It's like an A/B test, just like they would design if you were a real scientist, which I'm not. Well, maybe I am if I'm gear testing. I don't know. But I was able to test it. And lucky for you, the one that performed best in my test, the best in the test, were the AFO 5-inch Ultra. and you can buy them. The other's discontinued, so you can't buy it, but you can buy the one that worked better. So use code FREEOUTSIDE at johng.com and tell them I sent you. Okay, I think I've gone over all my strategies. The other big thing I wanted to learn was like, what level of efficiency can I expect from myself when I'm out there? Like, if it's pouring rain, how quickly can I set up my tarp and be sleeping in it? And the answer is not as quickly as a lot of my other adventures. So I would often cowboy camp, or weather would come in a lot slower on the Pacific Crest Trail, or I don't know. It was just like, there's so much more going on the Appalachian Trail between humidity and rain and weather overall that I just wasn't able to have a good pitch of my tarp within 3 or 4 minutes like I often was on other trails. So I learned that I need to give myself a little bit more grace when setting up everything and tearing it down. But, you know, live and learn. Those kind of things help me factor in and plan a good itinerary that I think is achievable and would help me get the record. And I'll send you out on this note. But first, our other sponsors, along with John G, Garage Grown Gear, most of my gear that I'm taking on the trail, you can get at Garage Grown Gear, garagegrowngear.com. Check them out. And CS Coffee, csinstant.com.coffee. CS, the letters, instant, the word, period, the symbol, com, the thing you do with the internet, no, .coffee, oopsies, csinstant.coffee, premium instant, freeze-dried coffee. Check it out today. Okay, my itinerary goes to, if you've listened this far, you are in for a treat. Okay, itinerary, this is what I've said that I'm going to have for a time. It is 43.8 days is my expected goal. I'm capable of faster, and of course slower could happen, but my itinerary is currently slotted for 43.8 days. All right, stay elite, my friends.